Hey, this is Digital Byte Computing. Today we're going to look at why would you in the world want to install Windows onto your Mac. So, you've got a Mac and you can actually run Windows onto it. Now, you're thinking to yourself, why would I buy a Mac and use the Mac OS operating system that is so flash and so just really cool and easy and slick? Why in the world would I want to run Windows onto it? If I wanted to run Windows, I would have bought a Windows computer, right? That's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think, well, if I want to run Windows, I buy a Windows computer. If I want to run Mac, I buy a Mac computer and that's it. But the thing is, there is still some applications that you cannot buy for Mac, right? Frankly, look, I enjoy my Macs. I like my Macs, right? The rest of the world, majority of people are still running Windows, okay? It's a fact of life. People are still running Windows. The Mac is growing. The Mac has been growing a lot since the iPod came out. Then the iPhone and the iPad came out, and it gave it so much more traction, gave Apple so much more traction and exposure. There's a lot of people using their iPhones and going, wow, this is just really easy to use. Wow, Apple actually make computers. Maybe they're easy to use as well. So a lot of people are making the switches from Windows to Mac, which is fantastic in my opinion. But there are still certain applications, certain things, certain benefits perhaps, to still running some form of a Windows application. All right. Now the beauty is the Macs do have a software package that comes built in called Boot Camp. All right. So Boot Camp is an application that you can run on your Mac and install Windows essentially onto your Mac and have it running side by side. So you can set it up so that when you boot up your computer, you turn on your Mac, you can select whether you want to start up in Windows or in Mac. Okay, I do have a tutorial on how to do that. We're not going to go through that in this video, but the options are there for you. So if we look back, there could be certain applications that you really love, certain games that you love, right? There's a lot of games still out there that have not been written for the Mac. They're Microsoft only games. So how do you play those on a Mac? Well, look at installing Windows on your Mac. That's definitely an option, all right? There are applications that are still accessible only for Windows. So you may want to install Windows for your Mac, right? I know, for example, when it came to tax time and you had to do your tax returns and things like that, the application was only available for Windows, which means if you were on a Mac, you couldn't do your tax. So having Windows running, even if you don't access it very often, is still helpful because there are still applications out there that aren't Mac friendly. Okay, so that's one of the primary reasons why I think you would still run Windows on your Mac. There are benefits to having them both side by side, right? Because you do have that flexibility. Now, don't be concerned about is it going to make my Mac run slower? Is it going to do all this sort of stuff? No, because they run separately. Now, if we add on top of that, there are applications available for the Mac, such as Parallels and VMware Fusion, which lets you run Windows actually inside your Mac at the same time. Now, you can be playing on your Mac, and then you can have Windows running inside another window inside your Mac, and you can have seamless activity between your Windows and your Mac apps. You can do that as well, but generally that will share the resources, right? So some resources will go towards your Windows, some will go towards your Mac, or other way around, okay? So that's something you've got to consider. There are options to run it at the same time, but look, it may sound crazy to run your Windows on your Mac. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you're in the Mac ecosystem, don't worry about Windows. But frankly, look, there's still a lot of good software out there that is only Windows compatible. I'm sure in the future that will change. I know that currently that is changing very quickly. There's a lot of developers that are writing a lot of stuff that they were writing only for Windows. They're now writing it on the Mac. And that is because the Mac has just had huge market share growth over the last few years, right? So that is going to continue to grow. So look, up to you, completely up to you. I would recommend doing it because you'll never know when you have that time and you're like, I needed Windows for X and Y and I don't have it. So it also saves you on having to buy a separate Windows computer. right? You don't have to buy a separate computer. You don't have to have a Windows and a Mac computer. You can have your Mac, as slick and beautiful as it is, you know, your MacBook Pro, your iMac, whatever you have, as slick and beautiful as it is, but also have Windows there on the side if you do need to access it, right? Now, here's another thing. A lot of guys love the look of the Mac, but don't like the operating system. I know, it's crazy. How can you not like the Mac operating system? But there's a lot of guys who just like the look of the Mac, the aesthetic look, you know, the slickness, all that sort of stuff, but still choose to run Windows. So you can do that as well. You can just have it solely as your Windows computer. In your business, you could have it solely as your Windows computer, but it's a Mac. You then head home, you can boot up your Mac. So you can actually interchange between the two. Because what you can find is sometimes you'll go to if you work in a place where they're not very happy towards the Mac breed, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of IT guys out there that don't like Macs. For some unknown reason, they just close their minds, I don't like Macs. So what you could do is, let's say you have your own computer, you have to bring it into work, you could have Windows running on it, and you could be running Windows at home, in your office, and then you get home and you run Mac. Here's another thing. You're wanting to get a new computer at work, right? You love your computer at work, that's running Windows, blah, 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 but you love your Mac at home so much better. Why don't you pursue and push your IT, your manager, to say, hey, look, you know you can actually run Windows on your Mac as well. So why don't, for my next computer, when this computer dies, why don't you get me a Mac and I'll run Windows on it? That's a good idea. You know, that way the business is still happy, your IT department is still happy because they're running Windows and they know Windows and they can know how to do the drivers and they know how to install everything. But you can then have Mac running on it as well when you head home and be more familiar with the fleet of Mac software. So look, I think that's a general overview. I hope you found it helpful. Feel free to comment and like this video, it would be fantastic. And subscribe to Digital Byte Computing for a whole bunch of more videos. And as I mentioned, I do have some videos which you can click on here on how to install Windows on your Mac. So thanks for watching.